The government decides it's time to investigate itself once again as we open up a new commission into what happened at the Capitol Selfie Fest. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on with that. There's possibly a ceasefire over in the Middle East, but the big news in that entire story is that for the second time in a week, I've agreed with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Honorable and Venerable D. Twitch. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on with that. Apparently, there is a strike at various McDonald's across the country for a $15 an hour minimum wage, so we'll talk a bit about what's going on there. And Utah has passed legislation that may ban masks, so we'll talk a bit about what's happening there and a little bit of my opposition to this. Plus, we'll do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate at the end of the show. Hey, 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 do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We are going to sit back and come up with a nickname for you guys. I either hear Contemps or Edheads in the chat here. I've been asked about each one, but I want to see what you guys think. So, should we be Contemps or Edheads? What do you guys want to be? We'll figure that out as we go along here, and I will read this in the chat to see what you guys want to do. For those of you who are moderating the chat and hear this, I'll ask a couple times throughout the episode as well, but you guys ask the question too as we get more people in here. Ask each other what you guys want to be called. So we'll see what goes on with that, and we'll see where that goes. Plus, it'll be a good talking point to go on here because tomorrow is the day that we read live chat in the and at the end of the show. So, and I give a special thank you to everybody who chatted. So, getting the conversation going will be an excuse to keep you guys from lurking and let you guys come out and talk with each other and get the conversation and get a special thank you tomorrow. But, well, we'll look into that a little bit more. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to today, though, here, as I always say. But before we get into any of that, make sure you head on over there and check out my friends over at the various Freedom Scoop programs. Pardon our dust, we are still under construction. I know, I've been saying that for a long time. But pardon our dust, we are still under construction. But still, make sure you go out and head over and check out my friends at the Generational Gap, the Daily Ignoramus, the R-Rated Conservative, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, and the Freckles and Brit Show. Freckles and Brit will be coming back next month, so go ahead and check them out as well. Check out all the rest of our programming over here, and once we get back up and running, we'll have options where you can directly support all of our creators, which is what we look for. Have you come over, check out the website, tell a few friends about the website, and help us support great creators. All right, looking at your finance for the morning. On the Dow, to start out with here, we've got 33,896.04 points is the Dow. That is down just about 0.5%. Looks like it went down further throughout the day here, but it kind of slowly clawed its way back. But the futures are not looking good for it, so we'll discuss that as it comes forward. Looking into your Bitcoin is coming back. It hit a session low, dropping almost to 30,000. But hey, that was Bitcoin on sale, so I hope you picked some up. Disclaimer, that is not official financial advice, but I picked a little bit up. Just a little bit. I didn't get a Bitcoin, obviously, but I'm also going to set up a crypto wallet so we can put that in the description. So if you guys get a little crypto, in addition to buy me a coffee or Subscribestar, if you guys think I do a good job, you can toss me a little bit of crypto. I don't mind having some of this stuff, especially if it looks like it's going to go where it's going to go. So something I would definitely go and sit on as well. We'll see what happens with that. Looking in at your fuel. From Gas Buddy, the Costco still sitting at $2.68, so that's not moving. A couple other people have jumped on board. Some of the prices are coming down, luckily enough here, but we still have our 289s out here in Cambria, so we'll see what happens with that and where the gas goes. Let's see what the investors have to say for the morning. Starting with IBD, Dow Jones Futures fall as stock market rally test continues. Bitcoin still volatile, target Facebook, Google in buy zones, from Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures and S&P 500 futures fell slightly early Thursday, while Nasdaq futures erased modest losses. After a wild day for the stock market rally, Cisco earnings, the Ford F-150 Lightning, and Bitcoin's ongoing price swings were in focus overnight. Now, I understand very, very much that the electric motor is actually a torquier version than what our gas motors are. Either one of the F-150 gas engines are. In cases, if you get it set up right, it can even pull more torque than a diesel engine. But either the EcoBoost or the V8, that electric motor, can possibly pull up more power and more horsepower and more torque than its gas counterparts, which means that it will be faster, depending on how they set it up. But that still does it make a little pain in my heart when they use the Lightning name, when the Lightning was one of the most iconic performance names in Ford history. The F-150 Lightning, whether it be the square body one or the jelly bean body one, was their big motor with a great big supercharger on it. And it made a really cool sound. Whether it was the 5.8 or the 5.4. And it made a really cool sound. And using it, and I understand the electric pun, I really do, but still, it hurts a little bit that our great gas giants are going away to be used to say, hey, look at my electric vehicle. The major indices tested key levels Wednesday morning, while Bitcoin cratered only for equities and cryptocurrencies to rebound well off lows. The S&P 500 and Dow Jones found support at their 50-day moving averages, while the Nasdaq held above last week's lows. Still, they all closed down for a third straight session. Federal Reserve policymakers gave the first official hints that they are thinking about talking about tapering bond purchases. You think? That news lifted Treasury yields and the dollar, but didn't appear to have a big impact on stocks. Meanwhile, Bitcoin crashed to just over 30,000 on Wednesday morning, then rebounded sharply, but still down significantly from Tuesday. Bitcoin tumbled over the past week after Tesla CEO Elon Musk turned on the biggest digital asset, but Musk offered some fresh support on Wednesday. Coinbase, which suffered the outage Wednesday morning, hit a fresh low. MicroStrategy, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and other Bitcoin plays sold off before the pairing losses. Target, Facebook, Alphabet, Maravai Life Sciences, and Trip.com flashed buy signals. But the current market environment hasn't been favorable for new buys. Meanwhile, the commodity-related stocks, including miners, metals, and fertilizers, all retreated as crude oil, copper, lumber, and other commodity prices fell. Airlines, which showed promise Tuesday morning, fell back Wednesday. Financials also struggled. After the close, Cisco Systems, chip design software maker Synopsys, and shipping leader Star Bulk Carriers reported earnings. Cisco topped fiscal quarter 3 views, but the Dow networking giant gave weak EPS guidance. Cisco stock tumbled overnight, signaling sharp drop through the 50-day line. Shares fell 0.75% to $52.47 on Wednesday. Synopsys earnings easily beat fiscal quarter 2 views. Synopsys stock rose modestly in extended trade. Shares climbed 1% to $237.36 on Wednesday, holding their 200-day line and slightly below their 50-day average. Star Bulk Carriers earnings appeared to be lower than expected. The shipping firm will pay a dividend of 30 cents a share, reviving shareholder returns, but that followed expectations of a big payout. Star Bulk stock fell solidly early Thursday. Shares rose 2% to $22.54 on Wednesday, just below a recent 6-year high. Star Bulk earnings followed strong results on Wednesday from Zim Integrated Shipping, which result jumped to a record high. Meanwhile, Ford formally unveiled its F-150 Lightning Wednesday night after the president, Joe Biden, took a test drive on Tuesday. Come on, man! Have you seen the picture circulating around where it looks like there was a second steering wheel and a second set of pedals and the Secret Service dude was driving? I cannot confirm or deny if that was true, but if it is true, it's fucking hilarious. Ford says the F-150 Lightning will have a range of 230 to 300 miles, depending on the battery pack, with 10,000 pounds towing capacity. The EV version of the best-selling pickup, which will begin deliveries next spring, will start at $39,974 before the $7,500 federal tax credit. The longer range version will start in the mid 50,000s. So I've got a question on that. It's one that keeps coming up and up as we look into the electric vehicle thing. Now, I understand battery charging technology, and hell, I've charged batteries on numerous occasions. So my big question for this is, yes, you've got a 230 to 300 mile range, which is short compared to what your standard F-150 is. My truck can generally go, if we're doing highway, 600 to 7 miles on a tank. So I've got a 600 to 700 mile range, but it also takes probably about 10 minutes to reset that 700 mile range. It takes 10 minutes because gas pump's only at a certain level, and it's got a big ass tank. Man, it's got a big ass tank. But with what I'm saying with that and where I'm going with that is, as far as I know, and every time I've had to charge a battery, from empty to full, it takes a good 6 to 10 hours. Hell, even your cell phone with the fastest charging, and I've got the Galaxy Note 10, and it came with a super fast charger. But from empty to full, it still takes just a touch over an hour. It takes an hour and 2 minutes to go from completely empty, 1% on my battery, to completely full, 100%. Whereas if you translate that back up to the F-150 battery, that's, that's resetting yourself from 0 miles to 300 miles. Is it going to take you an hour? Are you going to be down for an hour every time? Like if you want to take a trip with the thing, are you down for an hour every time? I don't know. These are questions that we still have to go over with this, but they're going in the direction too. So they are moving forward and giving people options because people do want the electric vehicle option. So we'll see what that's going to be. Shares climbed 2% in the pre-market. Ford stock dipped 0.25% to $12.11 on Wednesday, just below the 50-day line. F stock has a 1372 buy point. Investors could use a move above Tuesday's high of 1253 as an early entry above the 10-week line and trend line. Rivian will launch its electric pickup in June with the GM Hummer EV set for late 2021. The Tesla Cybertruck likely won't arrive until 2022. There's still no finished design. The Austin plant is under construction, and the new 4680 batteries are several months at least from mass production. Google stock is on the IBD leaderboard. Target stock was Wednesday's IBD stock of the day. Let's see what we have on the futures. Dow futures fell 0.3% versus fair value off morning lows. S&P 500 futures lost 0.15%, and NASDAQ 100 futures were just above break-even. Cisco stock is a drag on Dow futures, but also the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Crude oil futures fell modestly, signaling continued pressure on energy stocks. Copper futures were just above break-even, both retreated on Wednesday. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So now that we've sat here and I've made myself out to be a complete car geek, I mean industrially, that's where I've been my entire life. That's what I did. I'm not one of these guys where I came up and went to journalism school and decided I'm going to wear a 7-figure suit and be on all the major networks. No, I went to mechanic school. I learned how to work on cars. And some of this stuff does fascinate me. All right, let's see what CNBC has to say. Dow falls 160 points, ends wild session way off lows, from Yoon Lee and Maggie Fitzgerald. U.S. stocks cut sharp losses and ended the wild session far off their lows on Wednesday as cryptocurrency prices largely recovered, but the weakness in speculative pockets of the market still weighed on sentiment. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed 164.62 points lower, or 0.5%, to 33,896.04 after dropping 586 points at its low of the day. The S&P 500 fell 0.3% to 41,1568 as 9 out of 11 sectors registered losses. The tech-heavy NASDAQ composite rebounded from a 1.7% loss earlier and closed flat at 13,299.74. As some of the major tech stocks reversed higher, including Facebook, Netflix, Microsoft, and Alphabet. The major average briefly added to their losses in afternoon trading after the Federal Reserve's minutes from the April meeting hinted at reconsidering its asset purchase programs in upcoming meetings. Wall Street had another wild session with tech stocks sliding in the morning as investors were rattled by sudden plunge in cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. Later, the weakness spilled over onto other sectors with the S&P 500 dropping 1.6% at its session low. The exception was a handful of retailers that reported solid earnings, including Target, who I will not go and shop at. The world's largest digital token plunged 30% at its low of the session to just above 30,000. According to Coinmetrics on Tuesday, China warned financial institutions not to conduct crypto-related business, possibly sparking the sell-off. The cryptocurrency recovered most of the decline in the afternoon trading and was last down 7%. The major averages later recouped some of their losses as Bitcoin prices bounced back. Tech stocks linked to Bitcoin saw the biggest declines in the sector. Tesla, a big holder of Bitcoin, declined 2.5%. MicroStrategy, another company that bought a large amount of Bitcoin for its corporate treasury, tanked 6.6%. Coinbase, the new public crypto exchange, tumbled nearly 6%. So, your cryptos are starting to have an actual way on the market, which is weird because everyone said that they had no place in the market. They're not going to do anything off this. But with this, I mean, that's people's retirement too. People are opening up Bitcoin IRAs. So, something else to watch here. Gold, well, it's probably still going to have value. I mean, gold's never not going to have value. Because even if it's just, I mean, even as a precious metal, it still has industrial purposes. And if all the shit hits the fan and we collapse, that's what we're going to need to rebuild our society, especially our electric society. So, yeah. The precious metals might be coming back out, but the Bitcoin, there are things to watch about it too. But I can't believe the fact that it is the kind of thing that is drawing on our economy. So we'll see. We've got just breaking here. U.S. weekly jobless claims total 444,000 versus 452,000 estimate. So that's good too. So we'll see. Maybe that'll bring up the markets as well. Let's get into the big news of the day, shall we? Starting with CNN. House sends bill creating January 6th commission to the Senate from Annie Grayer. The House voted on Wednesday to approve legislation to establish an independent commission to investigate the violent insurrection. It wasn't violent. It wasn't an insurrection. And the only person who died, by the way, as a direct result of the Selfie Fest was one of the protesters. On January 6th at the U.S. Capitol, within 35 Republicans breaking with their party to support the bill. The final vote was 252 to 175. The GOP defections showcased a significant break with Republican leadership in the chamber and former President Trump, who urged members to vote against the legislation. The bill now moves to the Senate, where it faces an uncertain fate as GOP resistance is growing. Wednesday's vote, which came as some Republicans have tried to downplay the violence that occurred on January 6th, there were like 2 violent people in the entire crowd. Everyone else got let in. And aligned themselves with Trump's version of reality. Oh, Jesus. Was still opposed by the most rank-and-file Republicans after House GOP leaders mobilized against the agreement that had been struck by fellow Republican Representative John Katko of New York. The margins are an important indicator because just how many House Republicans are willing to buck their party's leadership may offer an early signal for how many GOP senators could back the bill. Support of the plan would need at least 10 Republicans in the Senate to join all 50 Democrats in the chamber in order to overcome the 60-vote filibuster and pass the bill. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said Wednesday he is opposed to the bill, but wouldn't tell reporters if he'd actively whip his fellow Republicans against it. Moderate GOP Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who they hated yesterday, by the way. Oh, look at Susan Collins. Look at her. She's got illegal campaign finance going in. This story right here is going to tell exactly how the mainstream media is going to treat her about that, by the way. Because if she does what they want her to do, that shit's going to disappear. And if she goes with McConnell, that's going to be running up there. I have to wonder, because they knew this vote was coming up. I do have to wonder if that story dropped because they want to put pressure on her to do the right thing. Nothing in D.C. happens as a coincidence. Moderate GOP Senator Susan Collins of Maine said Wednesday changes would have to be made to the bill before she could support it. As the path forward on the January 6th commission bill is growing increasingly rocky in the Senate, House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer told CNN, of course, he would pursue a select committee to investigate what happened on January 6th if the bill to create an independent commission fails in the Senate. We're going to pursue this one way or the other, Hoyer said. Any attempt to obfuscate, to hide, and disassemble will not succeed. Ahead of the vote, Minority Whip Steve Scalise's office sent a letter to members informing them that leadership was now advocating Republicans vote against the legislation, which was a reversal from the GOP leadership's previous position not to lobby their members on the measure. The vote marks an end to a 4-month-long stalemate over negotiations as Republicans and Democrats struggled to agree on the focus and scope of a commission. While Democrats had wanted the commission to focus exclusively on the events leading to January 6th, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and others had suggested that the panel also investigate Black Lives Matter protests of last summer, Antifa, and the death of Capitol Police Officer William Billy Evans, who was killed outside the Capitol in April. Oh, but we forgot about that because that doesn't fit our narrative. Look, with this, and we'll talk a bit about more off of this, but the first question I have, and Rob on the Generational Gap brought this up perfectly last night. What the fuck have we been doing for the last 4 months? No, I'm serious. Because I've read the arrest records and the arrest reports of some of the people who were picked up for this, including one who is a dear friend of mine. I'm not going to name names right now because he's in the middle of trial, but you guys all know who he is too. I've read the arresting report for my friend from top to bottom. What are we doing if not investigating? Now, I understand the FBI is an executive branch department, but why does Congress need to get in on this too, unless they think that the executive branch isn't giving them the answer that they want? Let the executive branch do its thing. Separation of powers. Why the fuck do we need to have Congress investigate this too? They already impeached the motherfucker twice. And this, honestly, investigation isn't even in Congress's purview. Unless it is of an executive or another government official. That's the only time investigation is in somebody's purview. So why does Congress have such an interest in this? Except to play fucking political points. So that's what we have going on with that. Let's grab a couple other stories about this one here. I've got one from Scott McFarlane, McFarlane News. Alert, family has fallen U.S. Capitol Police Officer Howie Liebengood issues statement supporting approval of January 6th commission. Let's read this. Today, the office of the Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton released the following statement from the family of U.S. Capitol Police Officer Howie Liebengood regarding the National Commission to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol complex and the Emergency Security Supplemental to respond to January 6th Appropriations Act. We believe a thorough nonpartisan investigation into the root causes and response to the January 6th Selfie Fest is essential for our nation to move forward. Howie's death was an immediate outgrowth of those events. Every officer who worked that day, as well as their families, should have a better understanding of what happened. Uncovering the facts will help our nation heal and may lessen the lingering emotional bitterness that has divided our country. Unless the mainstream media decides that we need to have more bitterness, and then they're going to bring that shit right back up. We implore Congress to work as one to establish the proposed commission. Additionally, improved mental health for USCP officers has been one of our goals in the past 4 months. Through the tireless efforts of Congresswoman Wexton, we are honored a wellness program bearing Howie's name has been proposed in the Security Supplement Along with more resources for the program, we welcome and support the new funding and staffing initiatives that will help prevent future tragedies among the USCP. I've got another question about this here, and especially because it's fallen Capitol Police Officer Howie Liebengood. Do you guys remember when all cops were bastards? Because I remember when all cops were bastards. And I knew full well, and I said this at the time, by the way. I very vocally said this at the time, that as soon as the police, I didn't think it was just going to be the Capitol Police, I thought it was going to be all police. As soon as it was politically convenient to support the police again, which I assumed was going to come when it came to needing somebody to push the redistribution efforts of the government, but as soon as the police were politically convenient again, look how wonderful our police are. Our wonderful police force. How dare you question our wonderful police force? All cops are wonderful. The life of a cop has got to be harder than fuck. I mean, first and foremost, you've offered yourself up to be a first responder in case there is a deadly emergency. In most departments, before the fire truck gets there, before the ambulance gets there, there's a police officer there, in case something's got to be made safe for the paramedics or the firefighters. So that's the first thing you've asked to be put your life on the line for a community, and a lot of times it's for a community that hates you. You're asked to go stop a vehicle because it's going too fast, knowing full well that the person in the driver's seat is probably going to be pissed at you by the time you go up there. Now, on top of this, for at least the last 4 years, but this has been going on since Barack and probably long before, you are a political pawn for the Democrat Party and for the Republican Party to a lesser extent, but even for those assholes too. You are a political pawn for the Democrat Party because you are supposed to vote in line in lockstep with Democrats because you're a union worker and you're supposed to support their public sector union. But as soon as something bad goes wrong between one of your officers and an unfortunate suspect of color, now you are lumped in with that man who may or may not have done something outside of his purview, but you're all lumped in with that one man, or one woman in the case may be. And then later on down the road, once it's politically convenient, they expect to put you up on the pedestal again, and you're a hero. I can't believe what cops have to go through this. You're not a political pawn, police officers. You are not a political pawn. You are a human being. All right, let's grab one here from Politico. GOP defections over January 6th commission to deliver rebuke to McCarthy. From Melanie Zanona, Nicholas Wu, and Olivia Beavers. House GOP divisions were on full display Wednesday as dozens of Republicans broke with their party leadership and former President Trump to support a proposed commission investigating the January 6th. It wasn't a siege. The measure, which would task a bipartisan 10-person commission with delivering a report on the causes and facts of the I'm not going to say that word either. Fuck you, Politico. By the end of the year, passed the House by 252 to 175 vote, with every Democrat, shocker, and 35 Republicans in support. It now heads to an uncertain future in the 50-50 Senate, where Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he'll oppose the legislation. The big bipartisan vote was a major rebuke to House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who worked hard to minimize the brewing rebellion in his ranks over the commission. During the vote, McCarthy huddled in the back of the chamber with his staff, watching the vote tally tick upward after Republican registered their yes vote. McCarthy's handling of his party's internal divisions this week has revealed potential weakness in his leadership style and offered a preview of how the California Republican might run the House one day. McCarthy initially empowered one of his allies, moderate Representative John Katko of New York, to cut a bipartisan deal with his Democrat counterpart on an independent 9/11-style commission to investigate the deadly Capitol riots. But when Katko's ultimately struck an agreement, which included most of McCarthy's demands, the GOP leader balked at the plan. Internal debate then swirled among House Republicans over whether to formally whip the measure. Whipping against a bill negotiated by one of their own would have been largely unprecedented, so GOP leadership decided against it. But once it looked like dozens of Republicans might break ranks, McCarthy grew nervous about the prospect of defections and took more informal steps to build opposition to the bill, multiple GOP sources said. Further complicating the dynamics for McCarthy, the conservative wing of the House Freedom Caucus informed him on Monday evening they were staunchly opposed to the commission, and Trump came out against it on Tuesday evening. McCarthy has found himself in a difficult position as he tries to balance the various factions of his conference, while also mollifying the former president down in Mar-a-Lago, and he'll need support from all those corners to achieve his dream of becoming the Speaker, should the GOP retake the House next year. On the far-right, lawmakers complained that McCarthy should have whipped against the bill from the beginning, and were angry that Katko, who voted to impeach Trump, was in charge of getting the deal in the first place. "I'm glad he's doing it now," said Louis Gohmert of McCarthy's efforts to build more opposition to the bill, and Matt Gaetz took to Twitter to air his gripes, saying, "Choosing a pro-impeachment Republican to lead negotiations was foolish from the start." Intra-party tensions also boiled over during the floor debate after Katko yielded floor time to Representative Dan Bishop. The North Carolina Republican delivered a speech where he feared Katko had been played in the negotiations with Democrats. Yeah. I guess if I was in the House, I probably wouldn't vote for McCarthy as leader. I'm not going to lie. I would probably try to get somebody else back up there. But that's what we're seeing coming back from this. Let's grab another one here from Insider. Representative Tim Ryan ripped into Republicans from the House floor for voting against the January 6th Commission, saying that they don't live in reality. From Kelsey Vlamis. Representative Tim Ryan of Ohio ripped into House Republicans who voted against creating a commission to investigate the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Speaking from the House floor Wednesday after the vote, the Democrat thanked the GOP members who supported the commission and accused the rest of incoherence and not living in reality. "Holy cow, incoherence. No idea what you're talking about," Ryan began. He then compared the multiple investigations carried out by House Republicans into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton over the 2012 Benghazi attack to their disinterest in investigating the Capitol attack. "We have people scaling the Capitol, hitting the Capitol Police with lead pipes across the head, and we can't get bipartisanship," he shouted. "What else has to happen in this country?" "Well, we can get rid of you. That would be an improvement." Ryan also said votes against the commission were a slap in the face to every rank-and-file cop in the U.S. Oh, once again, what happened to ACAB? And fuck 12. You fucking hypocrite. Fuck you. He concluded, if we're going to take on China, we're going to rebuild the country. If we're going to reverse climate change, we need two political parties in this country that are both living in reality, and you ain't one of them. The House passed a bill on Wednesday to create a bipartisan commission to investigate the... Not saying that word. Fuck you. Really, honestly, if we're going to take on China, we're going to rebuild the country, we're going to need to reverse climate change, we need two political parties in the country that are both living in reality. Fuck you. You don't want two political parties. You want a monoparty again. Just like you fucking had before Trump. That's what you want. Two parties that both love going to war, love spending government money, and love taxing the shit out of people and making a top-down, single party, single forceful federal government. Fuck you. Anybody in Ohio, get this fucker out of here if you're in his district, because this dude needs to fucking go. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if I can play this because it is archived, but let's see if we can. No, it's not going to play because it's an archive page. That's lame, because I would have loved to listen to that. But fuck you, Tim Ryan. All right, let's grab another one from Politico. Anonymous statement on Capitol Police letterhead. Royals January 6th riot commission debate. Should I be reading this one first? No, I should be reading this one first. All right. From Olivia Beavers and Sarah Ferris. A statement released Wednesday on Capitol Police letterhead, said to be authored by multiple officers on the force, delivered a rare public rebuke of top Republicans for opposing a proposed bipartisan commission to investigate the January 6th Capitol Selfie Fest that injured scores on their force. The unsigned missive was sent to the office of every member of Congress hours before the House was set to vote on legislation creating the commission. Both House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who's actually Minority Leader, but all that takes is one flip from either Sinema or Manchin, said this week that they opposed the proposed panel, which they dismissed as an attempt by Democrats to politicize the investigation into the Capitol. It wasn't a siege. On January 6th, where some officers served the last day in the U.S. Capitol Police uniform, and not by choice, we would hope that members whom we took an oath to protect would, at the very minimum, support the investigation to get to the bottom of everyone responsible and hold them 100% accountable, no matter the title of the position they hold or held, reads the letter, which was not written or issued formally by the department. The department distanced itself from the statement, noting that it has no way of confirming it was even authored by the USCP personnel. The U.S. Capitol Police does not take positions on legislation. Bullshit. The identity of the statement's author or authors remains unclear. It was distributed by the Office of Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland, according to an email to House offices obtained by Politico. In the note, Raskin's office said the congressman, a lead manager for Trump's second impeachment trial, had spent months in discussions with Capitol Police officers who have experienced mental anguish from the No, it wasn't an insurrection, before deciding to release the statement. Raskin's staff told fellow House offices that multiple officers were behind the letter and chose to remain anonymous because they were afraid of retribution for speaking out. The letter from the Capitol Police comes amid a flare-up of tensions over the January 6th insurrection. No. So, with that, yes, I could see something like that, and these guys have every right to air their grievances with Congress as well. That's one of your rights in the Constitution. I think it's bullshit, especially with so many of your members who let the people in. But yes, air your grievances and use official letterheads so you don't have to go out and reveal your name and release anything that's damning about you. Let's grab another one from Insider for you guys. Capitol Police distanced itself from the unofficial statement from officers expressing profound disappointment in GOP leaders' refusal to support the January 6th Commission. From Sonam Sheth and Laura Frias. The U.S. Capitol Police distanced itself Wednesday from an unofficial and anonymous statement reportedly from some officers, saying the agency does not take positions on legislation. What do you want to bet Raskin himself was the one that wrote this? Anybody? Anybody got any bets on this? I'd believe it. A statement is circling on social media which expresses an opinion about the proposed legislation. The USCP said in a statement to Insider, "This is not an official USCP statement. The department has no way of confirming it was even authored by the USCP personnel." Do they have the letter? No, they don't. Alright, let's see what's going on with this. The USCP also posted its statement in a tweet. The statement is circling on social media, which expresses an opinion about proposed legislation to create a commission to investigate January 6th. This is not an official USCP statement. The department has no way of confirming it was even authored by the USCP personnel. The U.S. Capitol Police does not take positions on legislation, as well they should. Earlier Wednesday, some self-proclaimed members of the Capitol Police released a statement slamming House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell over their refusal to support a bipartisan commission examining the January 6th Capitol Selfie Fest and its aftermath. The statement was signed by proud members of the USCP and sent on letterhead of the USCP. It's unclear how many members signed the letter, But the officer who wrote the unofficial statement told CNN's Jamie Gangle that it represents the views of 40 to 50 officers on the force, and that the statement still needed to be out there. It needed to be done. So, somebody actually knows who this officer is. But otherwise, the officer's anonymous. So, the USCP doesn't want nothing to do with this shit, which is acceptable. Alright, let's grab one more here, then I think we're going to be moving on to talk about Israel. You know, whatever happened to the Israel story? It's not front page and center anymore. Alright. From Fox News, Politico reporter falsely suggests U.S. Capitol Police condemned GOP lawmakers for opposing January 6th commission. From Joseph A. Wolf's Zone. A reporter for Politico is under fire for amplifying a letter that falsely claimed the U.S. Capitol Police condemned GOP lawmakers for not backing a 9/11-style commission to probe the events of January 6th. The letter, which has been circulated by Jamie Raskin, appeared to be an official document released by the USCP and was addressed to members of Congress from members of the USCP. We members of the USCP write this letter to express our profound disappointment with recent comments from both chambers' minority leaders, expressing no need for a January 6th commission. The letter began, "The brave men and women of the USCP were subjected to hours and hours of physical trauma, which has led to months of mental anguish. Officers are forced to go to work with the daily reminder of what happened that dreadful day." Well, you can always call off. That's all that I would say. Hey, just stop going to work. See how quickly shit changes then. It is inconceivable that some of the members we protect would downplay the events of January 6th. It is a privileged assumption for members who have the point of view that it wasn't that bad. That privilege exists because the brave men and women of the USCP protected you, the members, the letters continued. Well, I would sit down and have a talk with the people who let the people in. And, I mean, furthermore, why? Why would you stand up for these people? I have that question for you. Now, yes, you served and protected. You filled your oath. You kept your oath. Okay, that's all well and good. These people spent 6 months before the January 6th Capitol fucking Selfie Fest. These people spent half a year saying that everybody who puts on the badge in the uniform is a white supremacist, is a bastard. Fuck 12. Pigs in a blanket. Fry them like bacon. And you trust these people to have your best interest at heart? Spare me. Spare me. Once again, and I said this, what was it, 20 minutes ago I said this? These police officers are nothing but a political pawn. They're good when it comes time for that union vote, that public sector union vote, and then they're bastards when they have to interact with somebody in society. They're pawns. I mean, at least people like Ron Helton, who sometimes pops into the chat, at least people like that are consistent in their views on this. Ron Helton hates cops, whether they're doing good or they're doing bad. He hates them. They're agents of the state, and I understand that. And there's consistency with that. But with these slimy fucking politicians, there's no consistency because they'll say whatever it takes to get a vote from whatever person that they're trying to fucking pander to at this point. All right, let's keep going. Let's talk about Israel. Because we're not all depressed yet at this point. From CBS News, as pressure mounts for ceasefire, Hamas lays down its conditions, and the missiles and rockets keep flying from Haley Att and Imtiaz Tiab. As the international community ramped up pressure for a ceasefire deal, a senior Hamas official laid out their conditions on Wednesday for a truce with Israel to end the current cycle of bloodshed in the Mideast. But as Israel's leader stressed the airstrikes on Gaza would continue until Hamas stops firing rockets, the militant group's terms seemed unlikely to bring a breakthrough. As the fighting continued for a 10th day, officials in Gaza said 227 people had been killed by the intense Israeli airstrikes, including 64 children. In Israel, 12 people have been killed by the ongoing barrage of rocket fire from Hamas, including 2 children. The airstrikes continued in Gaza overnight, with the Israeli military saying it had attacked dozens of underground Hamas targets. Hamas and its allies continued firing rockets from Gaza at Israel, launching at least 50 early on Wednesday, 10 of which fell short, the Israeli military said. Hamas officials confirmed the group's negotiating position to CBS News on Wednesday, saying that it would only stop launching rockets at Israel if two conditions were met, both pertaining to Jerusalem: that Israeli forces and police agreed to never again enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque, as they did earlier this month, and that Palestinians living in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in disputed East Jerusalem not be evicted by Jewish settlers from homes their families have lived in since the 1950s. So the thing with the mosque is going to be a fight until basically Armageddon comes. Because once the attack happens on the mosque, once Israel and the Jews try to take the Dome on the Rock, that's going to be when the world starts to end. And even Revelation talks about that. So, as far as that one goes, I don't think that's going to happen, because that's always going to be something to go with. But as far as the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, once again, I don't know who the aggressor is here. I know that it looks like people living in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood were being evicted, but it looks like they may not have a claim to that land. No matter who talks to you on this, everyone's going to have a different answer as to who the aggressor is on this. Who started this whole thing? And it will basically come down to political ideology, whether they want to support Palestine or Israel because they're a Democrat or a Republican. It's really coming down to that at this point. But these are the terms for the ceasefire. 10 days they're going and they're still launching rockets. There was a story that I had from Haaretz on the stack, but it didn't archive fast enough, so we're not going to read that one today. But yeah, they just launched a bunch more rockets into South Jerusalem. All right, let's grab one from the Hill, though. U.S. opposes UN resolution calling on Israel-Gaza ceasefire. From Jordan Williams. The U.S. has opposed a UN resolution that calls for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, saying it would interfere with efforts by the Biden admin to de-escalate the situation. A spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the UN told the AP, "We've been clear and consistent that we're focused on intensive diplomatic efforts underway to bring an end to the violence, and that we will not support actions that we believe undermine the efforts to de-escalate." The resolution was drafted by France, according to the AP. The U.S. had blocked at least 4 attempts to issue a press statement calling for a ceasefire, AP noted. It requires 9 votes as opposed to press statements, which require 15 members. According to Reuters, the UN sought to call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and condemned the indiscriminate firing of rockets against civilian areas. The resolution also urged protection and civilians and reviving the peace process between Israel and Palestinians. The U.S. has condemned the violence in Gaza. President Biden has expressed support for the ceasefire. Biden has spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu 4 times since May 10th. In the most recent call on Wednesday, Biden said he expects a significant de-escalation of violence and hopes to put the two sides on the path to a ceasefire. But after the call, Netanyahu said he's determined to continue military operations against Hamas, adding, "I am determined to continue this operation until its objective is achieved, to restore the calm and security to you, citizens of Israel." The Palestinian Health Ministry said Wednesday that 227 Palestinians have been killed, including 64 children, 38 women, 17 elderly people, another 1,620 have been injured. And yet, I do think that at some point they're baiting the Israelis into firing actual missiles at them, instead of just the dead warheads that the Palestinians have supposedly been firing to draw off the Iron Dome. I don't know. I really don't. I would just, at this point, walk away. It might be time for that. All right, let's grab one here from Jewish Currents. Now, this is not a green check verified article, but I still wanted to bring this forward because mark it on your calendars, folks. And Elaine already has, because I told her about this. I have agreed with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez twice in 1 week. Because she's right. I hate to say it. And I'm not going to be saying it too much more because her ideology flies straight in the face of my ideology. Our beliefs in what the government is and what its role is in the lives of people are diametrically opposed. But broken clock, I guess. Breaking news, progressive legislators to introduce resolution blocking bomb sale to Israel. From Alex Kane. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Honorable and Venerable D. Twitch, Wisconsin Congressman Mark Pocan, and Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib are preparing to introduce a resolution that would block the U.S.'s planned $735 million sale of bombs to Israel, according to an early draft of the legislation obtained by Jewish Currents. The resolution would halt the planned transfer of so-called JDAMs, or Joint Direct Attack Munitions, and of small-diameter bombs, both of which are bombs outfitted with special guidance systems to hit their intended targets. Both types of explosives are made by the Chicago-based weapons manufacturer Boeing. Israel used JDAMs and small-diameter bombs in its current attacks on Gaza, according to Al Jazeera Arabic. Which is all good. Now, there are a couple things that go along with that. There are a couple things to pay attention to with this, and to make sure that they're going to do along with doing this. One of the things to pay attention to and make sure that they're doing is make sure that they're also doing the same thing for Palestine. Because I've got this feeling that the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D. Twitch, and Mark Pocan especially, and I know Mark Pocan too, I've met him. I don't know him like personally, but I've met him before. He is the District 2 representative from Dane County, Madison area. And he is a gigantic horse's ass too, by the way. And Rashida Tlaib, I would be willing to bet that they'd be all for it if that $735 million sale of bombs was going to Palestine. Am I making a statement that anybody believes would be false? Do you think that's a possibility? Because I'm positive it's a possibility. That they would be all for it if we're selling the weapons to Palestine. They just don't like it because we're selling them to Israel. So that's something to pay attention to with this and see, because I know that we had just had another weapons sale to Palestine too. So, with that, let's keep going. I got another one from Axios in the same vein. Excuse me. The allergies are back and I'm sneezing all over the place, so my throat is raw. Sorry about the little bit of clearing of the throat there. Sanders to introduce resolution opposing $735 million arms sale to Israel. From Fadel Al-Hassan. Senator Bernie Sanders will introduce a resolution on Thursday opposing the U.S. sale of $735 million in precision-guided weapons to the Israeli government. The Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, reports. The sale comes amid the worst spate of violence between Israel and Hamas in years. Progressives in Congress have ramped up pressure on Biden to confront Israel on what they view as human rights abuses, and there it is. And there it is. They're taking sides on this, and they're urging Biden to take sides. It's not that they don't want the violence there. They just want to go to Israel. Israel's military campaign began in response to Hamas's rockets fired in Jerusalem, where police have been cracking on protests over the eviction of several Palestinian families. 12 people in Israel have been killed. The conflict has engendered the first major fault line between Biden and the left wing of his party, after they rarely united to push economic legislation during the first months of his presidency. Sanders' resolution would likely guarantee the vote in the Senate, because of the International Security and Arms Export Control Act of 1976, putting senators on the record where they stand on Israeli arms sales, the Post notes. It would only need a simple majority to pass the Senate, but two-thirds of both chambers would need to approve it to override the Biden veto. Progressive reps Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Mark Pocan, and Rashida Tlaib introduced similar legislation in the House on Wednesday. The issue of domestic pressure from Congress has been raised on at least 3 calls in which Biden officials pushed their Israeli counterparts towards de-escalation, Axios' Barak Ravid reports. So, yeah, that's exactly what this is, too. This has nothing to do with slowing down violence. This has everything to do with disarming Israel. and letting Hamas overrun. They are taking sides. So, I will say yes, we shouldn't be selling the arms to Israel. But we also need to stop selling them to Palestine. Don't pick sides on this. This has been going on for 4,000 fucking years. Alright, let's grab one from the New York Post. Facebook shuts down pro-Israel page targeted by cyber terrorism campaign. From Mark Longariello and Tamar Lapine. Facebook shut down a pro-Israel page that reportedly had 77 million followers after a cyber terrorism campaign by radical Islamic groups who coordinated the target with hate speech, its founder said. Jerusalem Prayer Group founder Mike Evans claimed that the critics bombarded the site with more than 1 million comments and said they had never posted to the site. There was an organized attempt by radical Islamic organizations to achieve this objective, Evans said. It was a very clever, deceptive plan by Islamic radicals, he said. Evans, who was leading thousands in daily online prayers for Israel, claimed the flood of complaints about the supposed fake posts was a complete scam and fraud. He told Arutz Shiva 7 that the activists also flooded the page with the vile anti-Semitic comments, including photos and quotes by Hitler, just to be able to complain about it violating the social media giant's policies. Evans, the head of Friends of Zion Association, told the outlets that he got the unexpected message that Facebook had removed the page when he landed in Israel ready to host a star-studded TV special. Facebook sent him a message saying the case was complete and there was no further action to be taken. Please consider this decision final, Facebook told him, according to CBN. He said he had not been able to speak to Facebook representatives since the page was shuttered on Friday. He also cannot post to his personal Facebook page, he said. So, once again, if it's real, if it actually happened, then what a fucking shitty thing to do, especially to a prayer account. And I'm sure that it's not just the Islamic radicals. I'm sure the ethno-nats had something to do with it too. That seems like something they would do. But, yeah, why would you shut that down? At least without an investigation. So, we'll see what happens with that. From the Hill. Biden tries to navigate fits and starts of economic recovery, from Niv Ellis. I like this one because it's really fucking stupid. An onslaught of surprising economic data is raising difficult questions for President Biden as he attempts to steer the recovery without derailing it. Republicans have pounced. Republicans pounce on unexpectedly high inflation readings and a disappointing jobs report for April, arguing they are the products of an overzealous government response that could kneecap the economy. Democrats counter the price hikes will be temporary, and that government programs and spending are needed to ensure a quick rebound and avoid the kind of multi-year sluggish recovery that followed the Great Recession. Oh, really? Answer me this question. Just briefly. What did we do to try to counter the Great Recession the first time? Government programs, bunch of spending, bunch of regulations on businesses to make it that they couldn't open. So, why would you believe for a second that this would work a second time? I don't understand the logic behind your reasoning. You just looked. And this wasn't that long ago either, by the way. This was a decade ago. This was a decade ago. Where we went back and spent a bunch of money, made new government programs and new government regulations for people, including a minimum wage hike, by the way, because remember, that happened right away in 2007. Why do you think this will work this time? When you admitted that you had a sluggish recovery the first time. Why? Tell me why this is different this time. Other than the fact that it was artificially created this time. Explain that to me, Lucy. Explain it to me. But economists say both sides, to a certain degree, are flying blind given the potential quirks of an economy reawakening from a pandemic-induced slumber. It could take months before either side is vindicated. It's harder to tell in data what's an anomaly and what's a blip, and what's a new trend, so Scott Roosterholz, a portfolio manager at Insight Investment, pointing to unusual and unexpected starts and stops in the data over the past few months. This is an unprecedented recession, so we're having an unprecedented recovery. The pace of jobs gains has become one of the most dissected pieces of economic data, particularly after employers added just 226,000 workers to payrolls last month. Economists were largely expecting that figure to be closer to 1 million. No, they were looking for over 1 million. Republicans have vociferously argued that various emergency unemployment programs at the federal level are encouraging workers to stay on the sidelines. It's not just that Republicans are vociferously arguing that. People are admitting it. On Twitter. We are closed. We're not going back to work until you give us a $15 an hour minimum wage, business leaders, so you could just sit and fucking stew in it. They're admitting to the fact that they can sit home on government assistance and stay out of the workforce. This isn't just Republicans making something up. These kids are admitting it. They're saying it out loud. How much more information do you want? Looks like I've got a Stephen Ignoramus in the chat with the host. Thanks for the host. So, well, we'll see what happens. I'm just going to grab a big tub of popcorn and watch the fucking collapse. Because I really don't care. I can grow my own food. I have access to land and an interest in land. I know how to fix vehicles. I know how to generate electricity. I know how to hand wash my clothes. If I gotta hunker down with a lot of armaments and a lot of ammo and just watch society burn, I'm okay with that. Alright, let's grab one from the Blaze here. Another one I found entertaining. Yeah, this is all about my entertainment. This has nothing to do with the news or anything. This is all just for my entertainment at this point. From the Blaze. Jill Biden said Harris could go fuck herself for attacking Joe in primary debate. Book claims. From Breck Dumas. First Lady Jill Biden had a strong reaction to now Vice President Kamala Harris attacking her husband during the first Democratic primary debate, reportedly saying Harris could go and fuck herself after the then senator suggested her husband was a racist. Fox News reported that the claim is made by journalist Edward Isaac Dover in his forthcoming book, Battle for the Soul, Inside the Democrat Campaign's due out next week. Dover, who was reported for The Atlantic and Politico, was the first to break the news when Harris ended her failed campaign for president. Harris came out swinging against Biden over remarks he made about working with segregationist lawmakers during his Senate career and over his previous stance against federally mandated busing. I was that girl. That was me. I was that girl. The first girl in the integrated school. That was me. And if this man had done what he done, and I might not have been there, man. According to Dover's book, she was searching for some way to condemn him for what he had said and done without attacking the man she liked and respected, after the campaign had told her she had to land hard on Biden in the debate. It was a debate! Harris told Biden in the June 2019 debate, I do not believe that you are racist, and I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 U.S. senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. So I'm not saying, sugar, that you're a racist, but you're a racist. Alright. Yeah. And I understand the protective nature of what Jill Biden is. She is caring for a dementia patient for a husband. But, yeah, it's juicy. If this is real, that's juicy as fuck, and I like it. All right, from ABC 11. Speaking of the job market. Why does everything have to reload all of a sudden? All right, from ABC 11, McDonald's can afford it. Durham workers join in national strike for $15 an hour minimum wage. From WTVD and the Associated Press. Dozens of McDonald's employees in Durham joined in a national strike to demand higher minimum wage on Wednesday, as many fast food companies struggled to hire and retain workers during the pandemic. The protest at the 2700 Guest Road location was joined by members of the worker advocate group, such as Siembra North Carolina Poor People's Campaign, Sunrise Movement, and others. The Durham location was one of 15 locations going on strike in the nation. North Carolina's current minimum wage is $7.25 an hour and has remained at that rate for nearly 12 years. Last week, the fast food giant revealed that it would raise pay to an average of $15 an hour by the end of June at 650 company-owned stores in the U.S. as many restaurants struggle to retain and hire new workers. Only 5% of McDonald's in the U.S. are owned directly by the company. McDonald's said they're giving raises to workers at their corporate stores, but that's only about 5% of McDonald's stores. That leaves out 95% of McDonald's workers like me, Precious Cole, a McDonald's worker who emceed the Wednesday rally. Today, we are demanding $15 an hour for every single worker who puts on a McDonald's uniform. McDonald's can afford it. Well, yeah, they can, but these stores aren't owned by McDonald's. They made $5 billion in profit last year off of our hard work. But they gave most of that money to their shareholders instead of giving workers a raise. Today, we let them know we aren't giving up until all McDonald's workers have $15 an hour and a union. This is going to go over well. This is going to go over real well. I can't wait. So, a couple things to point out with this. Now, this happened, I believe, in 115 cities across the U.S. So, not a real big, overwhelming turnout for this. Which I'm not surprised by any stretch of the imagination. And we've got people like Brooklyn Dad Defiant coming out here saying, "Don't cross that picket line! Don't cross it!" Well, honestly, I would just start firing people. I would just come out and say, if you're striking, then don't come back. Because I don't need that shit around here. I don't need that shit around here. Especially given the fact, and this is the important part. Now, McDonald's is coming out and saying that they're giving $15 an hour to their corporate stores. And Precious Cole is partially right because they can afford it. But they don't own the stores like where Precious Cole works. Some businessman who managed to get $1 million in the bank is who owns that store and now has to go to the margins. He has to pay franchising rights to McDonald's. He has to buy their food and only their food at their prices on whatever income is coming back in. So Mr. Businessman, even though he had $1 million bucks in the bank to start out the franchise, may not be able to afford this. The way that you guys think that McDonald's can. And McDonald's corporate can afford it. If you don't like it, go work at a corporate McDonald's store. If they'll have you. And here's the other problem with this. Now, you see DeSantis coming out and saying that we're going to cut off the extra unemployment at this point because we don't need it. We need to fill these jobs. You have other places around the country. Wisconsin's not going to be one of them because Evers is going to take that money for as long as he can fucking get it. But you have other states across this country. South Dakota, I think Texas is doing it. Various other states across the country are doing that. They're coming together. I know it was at least 11 were coming together and saying, we need to cut off this. And now Biden is even coming and saying, hey man, you need to be looking for a job if you want to keep getting unemployment. And if you turn away any work, man, you're not going to be on unemployment anymore. Once that spigot starts getting turned off, once that spigot starts to go away, you're going to have a lot of people a lot of people that are looking for that $7.25 an hour job in a hurry. What do you think that's going to do to your demands? Because we're in a second, and honestly, Biden got that abysmal jobs number. And he can't keep abysmal jobs numbers like that because we won't have a GDP for him to keep printing money against. If we continue to have abysmal jobs numbers like that, he needs asses in those seats. He needs asses right in those seats, on the fry grill, in the office, in the secretary's chair. He needs asses in those seats as quickly as he possibly can get them. So you're going to see a lot of people coming in for those jobs, and this is going to go from right now with the government supplying all these people. This is a seller's market for labor. But once that spigot gets turned off, it's going to become a buyer's market real quick. Some of your people that are behind you are going to possibly start saying that they'll work for less than minimum wage just so they can keep putting food on the table. Which is going to tank the economy anyway, but yeah. I'm ready to watch this, you guys. I am ready to sit back and say, hey, have fun. Welcome to the Hunger Games. All right, let's keep going here. We still got a little bit more to go through. What kind of asshole doesn't turn his ringer off when he's going live on live stream? What kind of jerk does something like that? Seriously. All right, I got another one from Insider here. This is an Insider-heavy episode today. Bernie Sanders will join striking McDonald's workers demanding higher wages ahead of the chain's annual investor meeting because... why wouldn't he? Because he's Bernie fucking Sanders, that's why. From Mary Meisenzahl. Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Honorable and Venerable D. Twitch, will join McDonald's workers in strikes planned around the U.S. for higher wages on May 19th, the day before the company's annual shareholders meeting. On Walkout Wednesday, the employees in 15 U.S. cities will go on strike to demand all McDonald's workers make at least $15 an hour. So far, the strikes are planned for L.A., Oakland, San Francisco, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Chicago, Detroit, Flint, Kansas City, St. Louis, Raleigh-Durham, Fayetteville, Houston, and Milwaukee. Well, they got wet in Milwaukee. A demonstration is also planned outside the company's Chicago headquarters. Organizers from the advocacy group Fight for 15 said Senator Sanders and two current McDonald's employees will give remarks about the strike in a live-streamed event. Then workers in Durham, North Carolina, McDonald's will stream from their picket line. And here it is. He's got every single Sanders buzzword in this statement right here. Are you ready? When working people stand together and they cannot be defeated, Senator Sanders told Insider. I'm proud to join courageous workers who are taking on corporate greed and demanding dignity on the job. The time is now to end starvation wages in the richest country in the world. McDonald's announced earlier Wednesday, in April rather, that it would raise minimum wages at corporate-owned stores. Entry-level workers will make at least $11 an hour, and shift managers will make at least $15, boosting the average worker by about 10%. The chain is aiming to hire 10,000 new employees in the coming months, and says its average hourly wage is expected to be $15 by 2024, which is going to be essentially worthless by then because we keep inflating the shit out of everything. But, yes, of course, Sanders is going to stand out there with them. Let's grab one from Fox. Susan Sarandon and AOC. We can't say AOC anymore. Remember, that's sexist, I think. Was it racist or sexist when we said AOC? I know she complained about it, even though that's her fucking Twitter handle. I can't remember, though, if it was racist or sexist that we call her that. We demean her by reducing her name to initials. It is the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D. Twitch. Is the proper name for the woman. Back McDonald's worker strikes for higher wages, from Thomas Barabi. Actress Susan Sarandon and prominent progressive lawmakers were among those who expressed support on Wednesday for McDonald's workers who staged strikes in cities across the country for a push for higher hourly wages. Employees staged walkouts in 15 cities, including LA, Miami, and Chicago, in protest of McDonald's pay practices. The demonstrations, organized by the activist group Fight for 15, were set to occur as McDonald's officials convened the company's annual shareholder meeting. 2 McDonald's workers are on strike. Don't cross the picket lines, Sarandon wrote on Twitter. The actress has been a longtime advocate for workers' rights at McDonald's and other companies. Fight for 15 has pushed for higher wages for McDonald's employees since it was established in 2012. The demonstrations occurred days after McDonald's announced plans to increase wages at company-owned stores. The company said wage increases would impact roughly 36,500 employees and roll out over the next several months. Entry-level crew members will earn anywhere from $11 to $17 an hour, while shift managers will start earning at least $15 to $20 an hour. Fight for 15 decried the move as a PR stunt that would apply to just 5% of its U.S. locations. The reality is, the McDonald's is giving shareholders billions while ignoring workers who deserve $15, the group said in a press release. Okay, where does the budget come from? Because McDonald's doesn't pay these franchise stores. I don't understand. Okay. Let me see if I can do this. By the way, Quest, I have that later on in the stack, so don't get ahead of us here. Okay, and here's what I want these people to do. Sarandon, AOC Biscuit, Senator Sanders, and the heads of the Fight for 15, because these guys are pulling fucking corporate money too, by the way. Don't let them shit you that they're not. They're not McDonald's employees. They are grifters who looked at this, found a way to get people to pay dues and pay for signage for them and everything, and are skimming off the fucking top. So, I'd be more interested to see Senator Sanders do this, but here's what I need you fucking people to do. If you think that this is easy, then buy a franchise and show us how it's done. AOC Biscuit. Buy a franchise, and don't do it in New York City, by the way, where the cost of living has stagflated to enormous proportions. Do it in the middle of fucking Idaho. Go into the middle of Idaho, where cost of living is low, and show us how it's done. Show us how you run a McDonald's for $15 an hour on a franchise, not a corporate store, franchise. Buy the franchise and show us how it's done. Senator Sanders, you're a millionaire now. You sold a bunch of books. You know how it's done. You know how it works best. Show us how it's done. Fight for 15 corporate fucking grifters? Buy a franchise. Show us how it's done. Teach me your ways. Teach me how to become a better McDonald's owner. But I've got a feeling they're not going to do that. They're just going to complain about the people who have more money than they do. All right. Let's grab one here. At the next one that was talked about in the chat, by the way. From NBC Chicago, Lightfoot says she will only give one-on-one interviews to journalists of color. Here's
Brian a story Miller on our instant summer warm-up. Temperatures in the middle 80s, a slight chance of a couple of shots.
Shut up. As Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot approaches the 2-year anniversary of her inauguration, reaching the halfway point through her first term, she told the city's media outlets that she would grant one-on-one interviews to mark the occasion, but with one condition. She will only speak with journalists of color. I ran to break the status quo that was failing so many. This isn't just in City Hall, Lightfoot tweeted Wednesday morning. It's a shame that in 2021, City Hall, the press corps, is overwhelmingly white in a city where more than half the city identifies as Black, Latino, AAPI, or Native American. Diversity and inclusion is imperative across all institutions, including media. In order to progress, we must change, she continued. This is exactly why I'm being intentional about prioritizing media requests from POC reporters on the occasion of the 2-year anniversary of my inauguration as mayor of this great city. That is racist! But I've got this feeling this has more to do with ideology and the fact that the reporters of color will give her softball questions and won't press her on anything, including the fact that she does terrible PR events and the city is a hotbed of fucking violence. Where's Behavior? I need Behavior to get on this. Behavior, come join Freedom Scoop. I need you to go do an interview for me. While some on social media responded to Lightfoot's tweets Wednesday praising her move as equity and a step forward in representation, many others criticized the decision. Chicago Tribune reporter Gregory Pratt was among those disagreeing with the policy. I'm a Latino reporter, Chicago Tribune, whose interview request was granted for today, Pratt tweeted. However, I asked the mayor's office to lift its condition on others. When they said no, we respectfully canceled. Politicians don't get to choose who covers them. Exactly. You don't get to choose. That's not freedom of the press. And we saw Harris too. She's keeping a list of people who are friendly to her and people who aren't. Biden won't even get in front of the fucking press room unless it's with hand-selected people who are going to ask him softball questions of, Mr. Biden, please tell us. Inquiring Minds wants to know, how cute is your dog? No, seriously, how cute is your dog? Mr. Biden. How much do you love Jill? No, seriously, tell us. Mr. Biden. Mr. President. How great is your life right now, Mr. President? How awesome are you? That's what these people want, and they get to hand select. That's not free press. That's crony press. And that's not what the most popular elected leaders of this country do. All right. I've got one from WXII 12 out of North Carolina. Gas outages continue to decrease from WXII 12 web staff. Fuel forecasting experts are seeing gas shortages decrease slightly as the week moves forward. As of Gas Buddy's most recent update at 8:58 a.m. Wednesday, 42% of North Carolina gas stations were out of fuel. Looking specifically at the Triad, 26.7% of gas stations were without fuel in the area, according to Gas Buddy on Wednesday morning. That's a big drop from the weekend, with outages of 68% on Saturday and 57% on Sunday, according to Gas Buddy. Looking back at a week ago, drivers found gas pumps shrouded in plastic bags at tapped-out service stations across more than a dozen U.S. states, while the operator of the nation's largest gasoline pipeline reported making substantial progress in resolving computer hack-induced shutdown when responsible for the empty tanks. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm told the AP on Friday that the nation is over the hump on gas shortages, with about 200 stations returning to service every hour, which is good. But people are going to go back and they're still going to buy up as much gas as they could because the supply chain was interrupted once again. You have to remember that's what people are going to do. So they'll get up there. This will eventually all get ironed out, but you still have a lot of demand and not as much supply as you need to. But give it a little bit of time. The trucks got to run, and they're going to run. But we actually see some closure to this particular story, which we don't see very often in this news cycle anymore. All right, I've got one more here, then we will do a thing that I like and two things that I hate. I got two today because, well, I hated both of them. From the Hill. Utah legislature passes prohibition on mask mandates in schools, from Jordan Williams. The Utah legislature has passed a bill prohibiting schools from requiring masks. The legislation prohibits a face covering requirement to participate in or attend instruction, activities, or any other place on the school campus or facilities in the system of public education after the end of the 2020-2021 school year, according to its text. It further prevents higher education institutions and the Utah Board of Higher Education from requiring face coverings at the end of the spring semester of 2021. The measure passed during a special session of the Utah State Legislature. According to Deseret News, the House passed the bill 50 to 24, and the Senate passed it 23 to 5. The bill now heads to Governor Spencer Cox's desk for his signature. So, first and foremost, I don't think the state should be making this decision. This should be done at the local school board levels. There shouldn't be bans on the requirements, but even still, I know a lot of people are coming in and saying that Utah is banning masks in schools. They're not. And yes, the kids are going to have to decide what is the most prudent way for them to protect themselves. And the teachers as well. I like the fact that there's not going to be a mandate, that this is going to be a matter of individual responsibility. Rather than the company, who the mask manufacturers are all very excited at this point, but, well, they're less excited now, but they were very excited for the last year. But looking at this, and now we see these mandates go away, as long as there's not a ban and people still, who, especially if they think that they need to, can do so, I'm actually okay with this. But I still would have rather seen this at a local level. Your local government knows best on how to protect its own citizens and what's going to be the best for them. Your state government doesn't, and God knows the federal government just doesn't care. All they do is do what it takes to keep them in power. So that's possibly some good news too, as we see more and more stuff go away. I really think that this could have been done last year at this point, especially going into the later parts of summer, August, September, when we knew about what was going on with this and we'd just seen protests forever. We really could have done this last year, but we got to get back to normalcy because Biden's the president. But that's going to be it for the news today. And the last thing we do on Thursday is a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. But we got a twofer on things that I hate today. All right. Thing that I like. From the Blaze. Give that a second to think and load back up. You guys, this will be... we'll probably still be using it in next week. But starting next week at some point, we'll probably get the new tower going, and possibly we won't have to deal with some of these slowdowns anymore. Because there's a lot of processor difference between the new tower and what the old HP is doing. So all the pieces are on the way. I'm probably going to get the majority of the computer today. I got the 2 new monitors sitting over there. Hey, now we're doing a twofer on things I like too. Yeah, the 2 new monitors are sitting down there on the other side of the desk. Most of the computer is going to be coming to... The processor supposedly is not coming till Monday. And a friend of mine is actually sending the RAM as well, so I gotta wait for that to get back up here. Which the RAM should be arriving at his house today. I'm sorry, not the RAM, but the plastic bags. The static-proof bags that he can use to send the RAM should be arriving at his house today, which means hopefully he'll get them turned around real quick. I'll give him my address today, and those will all pop up here, and then we'll have new, fun, fast, powerful computing, in order to make sure that we never have bog downs and slowdowns again. All right. Thing I like today, though, hero teacher who disarmed school shooter, hugged child until police arrived. This little girl has a mom somewhere that doesn't realize she's having a breakdown and she's hurting people. From Sarah Taylor. An Idaho teacher is speaking out for the first time on how she disarmed a 6th grade girl during a school shooting that took place earlier in May, ABC News reported. The teacher, Krista Knighting, said that she grabbed the child and enveloped her in a hug when she realized what was happening. Knighting spoke in an interview with ABC's Good Morning America about the May 6th shooting, in which a 6th grade girl reportedly opened fire in a school hallway, striking a janitor and 2 students. All 3 victims sustained wounds that were not life-threatening. Knighting said she immediately went into protective mode and told her students in the class to exit the building as quickly as possible. So I just told my students, we're going to leave, we're going to run back to the high school, you're going to run hard, you're not going to look back, and now's the time to get up and go, she recalled telling her students. Knighting said she went out to the hallway and saw the young girl. It was just a little girl, and my brain couldn't quite grasp that, Knighting recalled. I just knew when I saw the gun, I had to get the gun. Nighting said she approached the girl and quietly asked, "Are you the shooter?" I just walked up to her and put my hand over her hand. I just slowly pulled the gun out of her hand, and she allowed me to, the math teacher added. She didn't give it to me, but she didn't fight, and after that, I got the gun. I just pulled her into a hug because I thought, this little girl has a mom somewhere that doesn't realize she's having a breakdown and she's hurting people. Nighting was able to call 911 while embracing the child. After a while, the girl started talking to me, and I could tell that she was very unhappy. Nighting recalled, she said the girl eventually calmed down. I just kept hugging her and loving her and trying to let her know that we're going to get through this together. When authorities arrived on the scene, they were able to take the girl into custody without incident. The arresting officer was very gentle and kind, and he just went ahead and took her and put her in the police car, Nighting added. So, with this, and the girl is still in custody off this, I like this a lot. Now, we see all the time with the school shootings, we hear, like Shapiro, well, I'm not going to read the name of the scumbag who went out and did the school shooting because school shooting is evil and everything's evil off of this and it's all evil. This person's evil and this is evil. And a lot of the times we do fall into the trap of doing that. We write off whoever commits the school shooting or the heinous act. We just completely write them off as evil. This girl's probably going to go to juvie, and I don't know how old. Does it say how old the girl was? 6th grade, so probably 12-ish or so. This girl's probably going to go off to juvie, but she's not going to go off to juvie written off by society. She's going to go to juvie knowing that she's going to come out and possibly, she's still going to have a bit of pushback because people are going to remember that she shot up the school, but, that one person came up and just didn't push her on the ground, didn't hold her down, just held her there and gave her support while they waited for the authorities. And the authorities were decent with her too. We fall into that trap, and I said that at the beginning. We fall into the trap of writing these people off together. The Columbine scumbags. Nicholas Cruz, the scumbag, which it's arguable that the Columbine scumbags were scumbags. Nicholas Cruz was a scumbag. But, how could that have been different? If somebody, even before all this happened, any of those events happened, if somebody had reached out like this, how could that have been different? Would David Hogg even have a platform at this point? If somebody, before Cruz started shooting, had reached out to the kid and said, hey, tell me what's going on. What can I do? All right. And that's the thing that I like today. Let's do a couple things that I hate. We've got some more McDonald's news in things that I hate today. From the Sun. Clucking hell. My ex-husband fed my vegan daughter McDonald's chicken nuggets behind my back. Now she keeps demanding meat. From Lydia Hawken. Co-parenting with an ex can be challenging at the best of times, but add in a conflict over your child's diet, and you're in for a world of trouble. Take this mom, for example. After splitting with her partner, the pair decided they would continue to raise their daughter as a vegan. So you can imagine her surprise when the child came home from her dad's house demanding chicken nuggets from McDonald's. Sharing her dilemma on Reddit, the woman explained, I became vegan when my ex and I moved in together because he was vegan, and he didn't like there being animal products in the house. I was vegan while I was pregnant, and we've raised our daughter vegan for the past 8-ish years. But while driving past McDonald's on the way home with her daughter, the woman was left shocked when she asked if they could stop in for some food. She continued, she has a full-blown meltdown demanding chicken nuggets. We get home, she's like blowing snot bubbles, she's so enraged. She howls her way through a bowl of leftover soup. She hates me. I'm a terrible mom. Dad would have let her eat the chicken nuggets. She wore herself out crying. The following day, the woman's daughter was angry at her for eating meat. And while she doesn't mind her having chicken, the anonymous parent said she was unhappy with the tantrum. Well, yeah, you should be unhappy with the tantrum. I have a lot of questions about this, though. I really do. First off, why are you raising a daughter vegan? Why? I don't understand the mentality behind this. For a child, especially, who's needing all the nutrients they can get, the quickest way for them to get nutrients is from animal proteins. Unless your doctor tells you specifically that this child cannot consume animal products, your child should be consuming animal products. It helps with the growth. Now, once you're an adult and you're done growing, I can see different sides to this and different arguments to this, and I'm never going to begrudge your own lifestyle of veganism, But even when my sister was on a keto diet, and keto is much better for everybody involved, you get some of the processed sugars out, you get some of the bleached flours out. The kids weren't on that. Now, they had a lot of meals that were crossover because it's a lot of meat and vegetables. But they still got mac and cheese, they still got cookies, they still got candy, they still got brownies and shit. Because they need the extra carbohydrates for energy and to help in their growth. Whereas my sister and her boyfriend don't. They can survive on a diet of meat and vegetables. And that's sitting in the same situation. But I've got another question for this as well. Just to go on for what happened with this. Now, this is a little girl who's being co-parented. Do we have an age? We don't have an age, but we're going to make the assumption at this point, because statistically this is going to be it, that this girl is old enough that she's in at least elementary school, which means she's probably going out and hanging out with friends and doing things outside of the house as well. How do we know that it's the dad that gave her the chicken nuggets? She could have done it at a friend's house. And then what's the classic trope when you're dealing with co-parents and trying to get your way? Dad would have let me do it. Dad would have let me have it. Dad would have let me do this. So it doesn't necessarily matter that she maybe got it at a friend's house or just went into a McDonald's on her own. I don't know how old this girl is. None of that matters. What matters is the fact that why are we going directly and blaming the father? But yeah, I like this in here. Seawall read this actually last night and was kind of giving me a breakdown of it because we were doing voice chat last night. But he says, also from a dude who gave me a hard time for craving Oreos, which are fucking vegan while I was pregnant with her. He asked me if they're vegan. Oreos are vegan. The cream does not have any dairy in it whatsoever. It's all lard and sugar. I'm sorry, not lard and sugar, but vegetable fat and sugar. If it was lard and sugar, it wouldn't be vegan, because that's animal fat. But yeah, that's just ridiculous. All right, and the last one that I hate. I don't know why this even is news, to be completely honest. Give the Daily Wire a second to catch up here. All right, from the Daily Wire, Anna Paquin. I'm a proud bisexual who's married to a wonderful human who happens to be a man. From Paul Bois. In an Instagram post on Tuesday, Academy Award winner Anna Paquin, the piano, tore into critics for knocking her for claiming to be bisexual while being married to her former True Blood co-star Stephen Moyer. Paquin asserted that her marriage to a man says nothing about her sexuality, which it really doesn't, to be completely honest. I'm a proud bisexual who is married to a wonderful human who happens to be a man, she wrote. If he doesn't have a problem with it, why should anyone else? Paquin included the hashtags, love is love, fuck bi erasure, bi pride. Paquin later responded to a comment lamenting how bi celebrities end up living the white picket fence life. I'm getting tired of seeing bi celebrities constantly advocate for it only to end up conventionally married to men with multiple children, living out the so-called white picket fence life, said the comment. First of all, apparently the piano is something that Anna Paquin has been in. I couldn't tell you anything that Anna Paquin has been in since X-Men, because I don't care. But furthermore, to look at this, yeah, okay, you're bi. So you're into chicks, and you're married to a man. Big deal. I hate this more of the I'm actually on Paquin's side for this one, which is surprising because usually I think that celebrities like Anna Paquin are vapid fucking airheads who need to get a reality check over the fact that nobody really gives a fuck what's going on in their life, unless they're crazy stalkers or paparazzi. But I'm on Paquin's side for this one, and the first girl I was engaged to was actually bi as well, and she wound up married to somebody else on top of this. But I mean, she married a guy. Yes, she's attracted to women, but she married a guy. So, where's the issue? I don't understand what the issue is with these trans people, other than the fact that they think that if you marry a straight man, you're a part of the patriarchy and this and that and the next thing. Well, be part of the patriarchy then. The thing that pisses me off about celebrities is the fact that they do go out and they live the I'm going out and getting married lifestyle. And their marriages are usually short. But they go out and live the marriage lifestyle while coming out and telling these young women and even the young men, hey, you can sleep around and do whatever the fuck you want and you don't need no man and you don't need no woman. And yet they go out and get married all the fucking time. But I don't see any problem with somebody, with a woman being bi and married to a girl. Or a guy being bi and, I'm sorry, a woman being bi and married to a guy. Or a guy being bi and married to a girl. There's no problem with it. She's not a lesbian. She likes both. She's a switch hitter. And this lucky dude probably gets a threesome every once in a while because of it. But there it is. All right. And I think that's going to be it for the day. I can't believe I just took Anna Paquin's side on something. But it is, logistically, it's the most effective way to do this one. All right, let's get the fuck out of here. Throw some music on and let's go. Let's crank that back just a little bit. All right, well, thanks everybody who came and hung out with us over the news and came and chatted in the live chat. What did we? I'll have to go back and look at the live chat. What did we determine? Are you guys going to be contemporaries or are you going to be ed heads? And what's it going to be? What do you guys want to be called for the morning? Because we're starting to get enough of a crowd where we can start doing that. But thanks everybody who came by. Tomorrow is the day I read and thank the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat. So if you're just lurking right now, get those last minute messages in so I can thank you properly tomorrow. And we'll see you tomorrow, where we'll probably talk more about the news, about the economy, about where everything's going and what's actually happening in Israel. So we will see you guys there for more contemporary. I am 50-50 on a weekend stream. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull across the board together, but I will give you guys a call-in show instead. If I can't get guests for across the board, then we'll do an Ed Talk or we'll do a call-in show instead. So look forward to that. That will be at 5:30 Central Time on Saturday. No matter which program it is, it'll be at 5:30 Central Time on Saturday. So looking forward to seeing you guys there. And until then, and until tomorrow, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.